So level 1 physicist, welcome to our next lesson, velocity and acceleration. So what is velocity? So in the previous video, I kind of used the term velocity and speed interchangeably, but as you go on with physics, you'll see there is actually a difference. So velocity is essentially the speed, which has a certain size, but it's in a given direction. So when a plane goes loop to loop, even though its speed stays the same, its velocity is changing because its direction is changing as it goes in the circle. So acceleration is essentially the change in velocity over the change in time. So acceleration is the final velocity minus the initial velocity over the time it takes for that change to occur. And just like with speed, delta V, that triangle, just means a change in velocity. Okay, so acceleration has the units of meters per second per second. Be careful with that. The velocity, of course, is the units of meters per second, and time is, of course, in seconds. So why is it meters per second rather than meters per second? Well, we've just seen that acceleration is the change in velocity over the time taken for that change, and velocity, the change will be measured in meters per second, and you're going to divide it by seconds. So it's going to be meters per second divided by seconds, or meters per second per second. That is why the units of acceleration are meters per second per second. So just like speed, acceleration also has an equation triangle. So you should learn these equations, learn them, okay, go over and over to remember them, or you can put the equation triangle down in the exam first thing. Okay, so acceleration is velocity over time. Velocity is going to be acceleration times time, and the time it takes for that change to occur will be velocity divided by the acceleration. So the other points are, in terms of speed and velocity, you can use speed in those equations as well. They're kind of interchangeable, okay? So speed can be used in the acceleration equation. Change of velocity is going to be the final velocity minus the initial velocity. So lots of your exam questions could involve calculating the change in velocity first. Deceleration is going to be when the velocity or speed is slowing down, okay? And that will be negative, the acceleration. And circular motion, as I've already mentioned. So constant speed, basically it's an acceleration because even though it's moving at a constant speed, the direction is changing. Okay, so that's why it's going to be an acceleration when it's moving in a circle. So we looked at distance time graphs. There's also velocity time graphs, and the velocity time graph, the slope this time represents the acceleration. So the steeper the slope, the higher the acceleration. The shallower the slope, the lower the acceleration. If there's actually no slope at all, if it's just straight, it means there is no acceleration, and so the velocity is constant. And if it's negative, the slope, that means that the object is slowing down. It is a deceleration. And finally, the area under the graph will be a measure of the distance that is traveled by the object.